My name is Mitchell Baker. I'm co-founder of Mozilla and currently chair of the Mozilla Foundation, which is a public benefit org, and also exec chair of Mozilla Corporation, which exists in the market and makes internet products. Mozilla, for those who may not know, is centered as a public benefit organization, but living and working in the technology space. And so we work to make, we'd say, internet life better. We used to call it the web, but of course, many people today come of age on phones and don't really think about the web. So what we're trying to do is build technology and products, but also underlying technology that shifts the balance a little bit, so that we as the provider are generating more public benefit and more benefit for you and a little bit less for ourselves. We feel in the tech industry that the benefits accrue too much to the provider and all the costs are externalized into society. And oddly, you can design products that do that differently. Open source principles are about essentially freedom. Actually, today I think they're mostly experienced as convenience. But early on, they're about freedom and giving opportunity for other people and shifting the balance of power. Meaning the core of an open source project is you can do what the original creator could. And so that has deep meanings for how does technology impact society, so we're committed to it. It limits your business models. Now, most internet models today are free, so subscriptions or buying software has gone away. And so in many ways, the limits of open source as a business model are less in the internet era than when we used to buy software. So we focus on the principles of transparency, openness, engaging people. It's also a check because you can see what we do, you can test it, and much of what we do is available as a public asset. So the commitment to what we're doing and people's trust and faith in us is an important part of remaining successful. Well, the internet or the global network is increasingly relevant to all our lives, and I think with the adoption of AI, we'll be engaged in even more of our activities. And so it needs to be something that is trustworthy, that we can understand. So part of that is product. Part of that is a commitment to open source and transparency. Part of that is the voice of society, which gets expressed through regulation. The tech industry has a long history of believing regulation shouldn't apply. We've never believed that at Mozilla because citizens and society need to have a voice. Over time, I think consumers will have more choice in product. There's less today. It's why we keep trying to build new products. So it's got to be an understanding that open isn't just convenience. It's actually what's our ability to impact our society through technology. And continue pushing and looking for how does society express its voice. And of course, regulation is the obvious one, but increasingly we're seeing more public-private partnerships. We're seeing governments begin to think about, for example, funding compute power for AI so that society has a voice. And for the future, the innovation in how society spends its resources beyond regulation to actually build something different will be really key. There are a few things. One, I always try to start with myself. And so this is a general advice, but I start here as well, is understand what's really important to oneself. Because that really varies among people. Some people, compensation is important because we need to eat and live and support ourselves. There are other people for whom compensation is the mark of success or an identity. And understanding about that for yourself is really important. Secondly, what are the skills that you are either really good at or really drawn to and content to really focus and be your best at? Because trying to do that in a space where you're not your best just makes it harder. Third thing, I would look pretty critically at where you choose as employers. Now, the amount of choice available, an individual can't determine. But within the choices that are available, to be critical, I think building networks is really important. And so there is the networks among the people with whom you share characteristics, but also the networks among people with whom you don't. And so I do think There's some building networks and allies. There is some research that shows that the retention rates, that people's choice about staying and leaving can be determined by the number of connections and relationships inside their organization. And so some orgs are good at that. Some orgs are good with resource groups, but not necessarily good at more general, cross-functional, different demographics, different ideas. So I think I'd look for orgs that were good for that. And then I'd look for leadership that actually welcomes a different perspective and really wants it, as opposed to, well, you know, I want to stand for something, but I don't want to hear a different point of view, or if I do, you know, I'm not going to listen to it. I think that's happened to many of us. So if you have a choice, trying to find leaders who are really interested in something different. Because being underrepresented by definition, like that organization doesn't have the viewpoints it needs. So finding someplace that can value that. And then of course there's the more general changes in society to advocate for.